what am I waiting for now? 50, 60, 70? When am I going to be able to just be a more authentic version of myself? And when am I going to have confidence in myself? I've gotten myself to this point in my life. When am I going to be proud of myself? When am I going to allow myself to be, proud of myself? And it's not about suddenly being egotistical. It's not about suddenly being a dick. It's about having a healthy self-esteem, it's so like I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, what, like, I'm just going to go through my whole life, like not liking myself and doing what other people ask me to do in realizing that like the reason that I don't like myself, big part of that is because I just do whatever people say, or I accommodate other people. I don't put myself first. And that to me was it's still difficult to do, because there is a part of me, my default mode is to, I don't want to look like an asshole. I don't want to be egotistical. I don't want to be seen as as arrogant or anything like that, self-centered.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Men on Purpose podcast, or welcome back if you are a regular listener, and thank you for being here. All of you, thank you for being here. This episode is another one of those super, super fun ones. And I love these because I never know where they're going to go. And this one went deep into feelings and authenticity and honesty and integrity. And I have so much fun with these episodes. Damien Fahey is my guest today. If you were born in the 80s or 90s or even the 70s and you remember Total Request Live on MTV, Damien was the guy who took over for Carson Daly. And Damien is one of the writers and producers on Family Guy. And I met Damien through Mark Henteman, who's also on Family Guy, who was on our show a couple months ago. That's not the reason why you want to listen to this episode. That's not actually the reason I had Damien on. I had asked Mark Henteman, hey, do you know any really interesting guys that have a great story to share about who they are and how they became who they are and got through the shit of life and fought through the pain and fear? And he recommended Damien. So I wanted to give you all of his credentials because I think they're awesome and they should be celebrated because that's what he did. And what you're really going to fall in love with is the guy who you hear who pours his heart out on this episode about how scared he was and fearful, and the way he got through it and the way he channeled the pain of his life into the radio. And it's a really freaking cool episode. And I love when I don't have a one sheet on someone and I basically just know them because they were famous in some capacity. And to hear what opens up in this episode is freaking awesome. You are going to love it. And we have a lot of fun talking. I'm really grateful and appreciative to Damien for getting so deep and just being so damn authentic. And this episode's fun and you're going to learn a ton in it. And I'm really excited for you to listen to it. Before we do that, let's take care of some business. One, thank you for listening. Really, really appreciate all of you. I get so much feedback from you. If you want to just balls up, feedback, get the feedback out. Like, click on the subscribe button on wherever you listen, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating and review. I'd love that. I really appreciate that. And any feedback that you want, even if you're scared to, like, be courageous. Just write to me, DM me and tell me, hey, I think you suck. I think you could do much better. I'm fine with that. And I take the criticism and I course correct because this is really important to me. And I know it's important to all of you because you write to me and tell me. So thank you for being here. Remember, if you haven't already joined our Men on Purpose community or our Quitters Club community on Facebook, please go do that. If you need anything about our coaching business or any of the retreats, masterminds, or private VIP one-on-one coaching that we do, you can go to ianlobas.com. That's my name, IANLOBAS.com. That's it. That's all I got for you. You ready to go? All right, enjoy. All right, Damien, welcome, dude. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I was telling you earlier, it's so weird to have somebody that you knew 20 years ago from the TV space that obviously you didn't know me, but you were on MTV, and it's just interesting to like cross paths 20 years later, two guys in their 40s, and like be celebrating careers and the things that we've done and the ways that we've gotten through all the stuff, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I think that's just super cool. It's fascinating. It's special. So really appreciate you being here, man.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, just let's jump in, man. Let's take us back. Take us back to, you don't have to go too far back.
Sure.
Take us back to like maybe out of college, out of high school, out of college, and your trajectory at that point, or what are you doing, or like what did you want to do?
I'll start with when I was 13. I sort of have described it on other podcasts as sort of like a hit by lightning sort of a moment where I was watching a simulcast of a radio show on television, and it was people with headphones on, microphones, buttons flashing, and I don't know what happened, but it was like being hit by lightning, and it was just became it's all I wanted to do all the time. And so I built a mock radio station in my bedroom.
Nice.
And, I would spend hours and hours and hours in there. It's all I did basically was pretend to be on the radio, and I would talk over songs, and I would do radio shows and morning shows with friends and everything, and all in my room. And from there, I grew out of that, and I said, I want the real thing. I'm going to open up the phone book. This is pre-internet. Well, it was internet, but it was pre sort of, the internet we have now. So I'd open up a phone book, and I said, I'm going to ask for tours of 3 radio stations that are nearby. And I'm going to ask at the end of the tour, I'm going to ask for an internship. I'm going to be really excited the whole tour, which is easy because I was genuinely. Yeah. And I said, at the end, I'm just going to say, I need to work here. Can I intern anything? I'll get coffee. I don't care, whatever it is. And so I visited 2 stations, and they said, no, both said you have to have college. You have to be getting college credits, and you have to be in school and getting, credits for it officially. And the last station said, yeah, you know what? Come on in on Monday and shadow the midday disc jockey, and he'll show you how to run the board. He'll show you how to, pull music and how commercials work and all that stuff. And so that was sort of the beginning of my professional radio career was being an intern at this little station in Western Massachusetts called WMAS. And it was adult contemporary music. So we're talking Rod Stewart, Michael Bolton, Celine Dion. I'm like 15 years old too, right? And it's not the music that I was listening to. I was listening to I was listening to like Spin Doctors and like those more like, rocky kind of stuff. But because I was around this music so much, and they played so much 80s music, and I grew up around, my parents played so much 80s music in the house and all sorts of music, but a lot of 80s music. I actually sort of fell in love with this like adult contemporary music after a while. It kind of like, what is that syndrome when like you don't want to leave your kidnapper?
Like, Stockholm.
Yeah, it was like Stockholm syndrome, but like, with like, Barbara Streisand or something, so, so it's pretty funny. And so I ended up getting into this music, and I ended up like working there or interning for about 6 months. And every Tuesday and Thursday I'd go in. I had a plan where I would go into the off-air studio, have my dad drop me off because I couldn't drive. So my father would drop me off after dinner around 6, and I'd go in there until 10 and pick me up at 10. And for 4 hours, I would just basically do what I was doing at home in my bedroom, but with real, equipment. So I would, load up songs, and I'd record myself talking over songs. And I said, I'm going to do this for like 6 months, get better and better and better. And then I'm going to make a compilation of my best, breaks and give it to the program director, slide under his door. And so I did that. And it just so happened one of the overnight DJs on a weekend, randomly, I was a freshman in high school at the time, I got a call and said the overnight DJ is sick, and we don't have anyone to fill in. Do you want to do midnight to 6 a.m. this Saturday into Sunday morning?
Wow. And
I said, yes, of course. So that was my first official, disc shift as a disc jockey, sort of dreams coming true moment. And then I rode that out for 4 years throughout high school.
Wow.
I didn't want to go to college at all. I had laser. I actually got, it's interesting. I actually got diagnosed year and a half ago with ADHD for the second time in my life. My first time was when I was 7, and my parents didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And then I recently separated from my wife over a year ago. We're still friends and everything, but it was like sort of becoming an issue in our relationship that was never talked about until the last few years. And so I got in to see a psychiatrist, and I got, went through a battery of tests and everything. And I told him about my childhood and said, "Oh yeah, you have ADHD." And yeah, so anyway, so I with ADHD, apparently one of the qualities of that is not being able to focus, and
Right.
then laser
And later.
focusing,
Yeah. Yeah.
like obsessive laser focus. And
Yep.
so I found that that's happened in my life, and it happened with when I was a kid, earlier with other stuff, but like radio, TV hosting, and now writing. And so I was laser focused on radio. Didn't want to go to college. My dad applied to 7 colleges for me. I got into none of them but one. The 7th one, I got 6 rejection letters. Then got into Northeastern under like the bad grades, like bad on paper, but might have potential, kind of
Right.
like good extracurriculars, but bad like in school.
Yeah.
And so I got into Northeastern, and I said, well, if I'm going to Boston, I need to go to work at a Boston radio station. So I did the same thing again. I did shift after shift, and I would record my breaks, and I cut them up and edit them. And then I sent a CD off to this huge top 40 station in Boston called Kiss 108. And I got a call like 2 weeks later from the program director saying, you know, he thought I was like a 30, 40-year-old guy, because my voice was like, it was like 50, it was like 18, but my voice was like really deep. And I ended up getting hired there doing part-time. And I sort of worked myself from the bottom rung of the Western Mass radio station ladder up to like filling in for full-timers. And then Boston, I was back on the bottom rung there and worked myself up to filling in for full-timers in the afternoon and stuff. And then MTV happened after that.
Wow.
So that's
I got a question for you before we go to MTV.
For sure.
Thank you for bringing into the ADD thing, because it's really interesting. I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 5, and put right on Ritalin, right? And that was rough. That was really rough. And then in high school, like I went through a lot of, and I want to ask you this too. I want your opinion on this. Like, what were your experiences in high school with ADD? Were you on medicine at that point because you were diagnosed at 7? But your parents didn't do anything about it?
No, I think I got diagnosed. It was, I don't remember exactly. I remember ADHD. He has trouble focusing. He has trouble following through. He has trouble retaining. I would take these tests where I would read 3 pages of a book, and then they would quiz me on the book, what I read, and I was getting it wrong, or I was thinking I read something that I didn't read. So it was pretty bad. I was actually in, they put me in, instead of getting me on medicine and sort of or therapy, I mean, whatever the right route was, they didn't do that. And so they put me in special education, the special education room, where I was in normal classes all day. And then once a day, I would go into the special education room. And that really took a toll on my self-esteem. And I don't mean to sound, judgmental or callous. Yeah, it was really hard. And I lied to my friend. They're like, where do you go? Like, and I would say, oh, I think I'd lied about it for a while. And then they found out that I was in, kids sort of they called it the sped room, which was a sort of derogatory term for, like they'd say, oh, he's a sped, like that kid's such a sped, and it was like this derogatory term. And so like they were saying that before they knew I was in the room. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't find out I'm like in the special education room. And so there was a lot of, on top of feeling alone and like there was something wrong with me and like it was hard to make friends, I had that sort of and also just the typical awful high school. Like, I mean, if you had a great time in high school, I feel like you were a total asshole.
Right.
Like that's like the only people who have fun in high school.
Yeah.
And so that just the horrible, miserable aspect nature of high school on top of or like, you know, being in the special education room on top of the baseline of like, oh, high school sucks anyway,
Yeah.
was really difficult for me to cope with.
Was the like, I remember that you and I are the same age. Like we went that I remember that term because
Yeah.
that was scary. Like I'm lucky that my parents advocated for me to not be in that room. But that room was full of what I thought were very, at that time, from my perspective, and this was in like elementary and middle school. I thought that room was full of very scary people that were very unpredictable because
Yes.
the special education room was not for people with ADHD. It was for people who had major learning disabilities, mental challenges, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
kids
And it
were in
was,
wheelchairs, kids were screaming. There was a lot. It was very,
it was like a
you know,
psych ward, dude, and it scared the shit out of me. I remember when somebody had my parents went in to do like an IEP, I think it was the name of it, and the school psychologist or whatever this quack's name was said, you know, I would recommend that he's in a special education class. And I remember my dad going, "Fuck that, man. He just doesn't pay attention. That's it. Like he doesn't need special education.
he
He
needs
just
to
doesn't
apply
like
himself.
he doesn't like school. He doesn't like
Right.
learning shit that you're teaching him, and that's okay.
Right.
And I'm okay with that, right? So
Right.
it was a very interesting time, the 80s. It feels like a time warp because today we're like, me as a parent, I'm so aware of how my kids learn, and I put them into a classroom and a situation based on
Oh
how they learn,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. No, the 80s, it was like, just
Yeah.
don't bother your parents. You know what I mean? It was like, just go, just leave me alone. Just get out
Right.
of the house. And
Yeah.
now it's so funny because it's the opposite. It's like, it's the complete opposite. It's like, where
Yeah.
are they? What are they doing from 4:05 to 4:15? They're going to have lunch, and then they're going to eat an apple, and then we're going to have juice, and then we're going to go outside for sunshine for 24 minutes, not 25, because there's a study on the internet that says kids shouldn't have more after 3 p.m. And it's like, oh my God, it is so far. And I think obviously, like everything else, including politics, the answer is in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
it is pretty wild when I tell people about, like, you know, growing up in the 80s. It's like, oh my God, you know, my parents would be arrested today
Oh my
for
God, yeah.
just letting me go out, you know, from 9 a.m, coming home at like 7 p.m, riding my bike around town. But it was awesome.
You'd be
It
on
was,
the news.
it was great. Yeah, totally.
Somebody would be like, I found your child 1 mile from your house at a grocery store paying with their own money. I'm posting this on Facebook. What an
Exactly.
irresponsible asshole parent.
Yes, and then my parents are canceled, and then they get fired, and they don't work, and it's like, it's so insane.
Yes, but
Oh,
that is our reality that we live in, unfortunately, and maybe fortunately for like the vastly irresponsible adults out there who somehow have children, right? That protects those ones.
It is a double-edged sword, yeah.
So what did that do to you psychologically? Did that traumatize you, being in that class and having to hide that from your friends? Is that why? Good.
Go ahead.
No, keep going.
Oh, I had, you know what? It's interesting. Now I'm realizing, because I've been in therapy for 5 years, and I just realized in the moment now, when I was telling you about the room, there were a lot of like loud outbursts where it was like, suddenly someone's screaming, suddenly someone's swearing, suddenly like there was like immediately like a fire was like, you know, and it's like, so it would sort of, and that was, you know, I don't want to paint like I had a really, I think the majority of my childhood was awesome, and my parents were awesome, but there was also a dynamic in the house of going from 0 to 100 at any given moment, and you don't know when it's coming, but it was a lot of yelling and a lot of, like, you know, loud, like, throwing of things. It got like intense, and I was just a kid, and of course, you know, it was the 80s, and it wasn't like, how do you feel, you know, about last night? When you heard, how do you feel? Are you okay? It was like, like all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
I'm upstairs, like completely panicked. I fall asleep. I wake up the next morning, and then it's like, hey, good morning. How's everything? Good. It's like, it's never talked about.
Right in your day.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I just became sort of, it's not PTSD, but it's, I don't know what another
It's
term would be. It's like a triggering sort of a thing is for me is sudden. I still don't like it to this day, like sudden loud noises out of nowhere. I'm super, super sensitive to. So that was sort of a similarity. And then I think just also growing up, you know, it was, for me, I had, I would say I was very creative. I was an only child. I made my own fun. I got into, I didn't feel alone as a kid. Well, it's weird. It's because I had a lot of friends and I would spend a lot of time with friends, but I sort of did have a bit of a lonely childhood. It was sort of, hey, we're going out on Saturday. We're going to go to, you know, do an adult thing. And then, you know, it was a lot of like adult things. It wasn't very, you know, I say I never went to Disneyland with my parents. We never went on trips, you know. It was like we never went on vacations, you know, as a family. We, you know, we spent summers on Cape Cod, which I guess could be a vacation, but there wasn't ever like a family get in the car. We're going to the airport. We're going to go to another place together as a family. It was sort of like, it was sort of a lot of me being around adults in adult situations and just observing, not being too loud. I was around a ton of big personalities as a kid. Both my parents, art teachers, artists. So it was very like creative and that was really great for me. Both my parents are super, 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 super funny, very observant. They could pick apart somebody like ferociously. Because and I, you know, through therapy, you realize it's because there was this dynamic in the house that wasn't being dealt with. So it was all outward criticism because they, you know, was sort of trying to keep try to keep the focus on other people and anything to pull focus into what was going on, you know, in the house in their relationship. My dad came out in 2013 as you know, he's gay, and so that was a dynamic, and that was sort of like the thing that, you know, don't talk about it, don't.
Wow.
Yeah, the fear of talking about your feelings, I think, or talking about your feelings there was a fear around that because I think they thought that might lead to, you know, secrets coming out.
Did your mom do that? That's such a, thanks for sharing that, by the way. It's such a great revelation. It's
I don't think I've ever said that on a podcast either before.
No, that's why I
but it's also like
you.
it you know, it's and while I was saying it, you know, I'm going, God, do I want to say it? Like, is this, what if my parents hear? But you know what? It's like, I think it's really
out there that needs to hear that.
Yes, it's so important. It's like because I have felt alone so much for a long period of my life, and it's very odd because I was on the radio, I was on MTV. I would say some of my loneliest moments were when I was on this television show surrounded by screaming kids and like, you know, but this like, how could I feel alone? You know, it's like you're going out with celebrities, like partying and stuff, but it's like there's this weird, like, what is this? Who am I? Why am I? It's like, it doesn't feel real. So there was like sort of a loneliness that came with that. But yeah, I think, like you said, if someone hears this and goes, oh, you know what? Because on the outside, you look at, you know, my career and all the awesome jobs, and you go, God, Jesus, this, you know, screw this guy. He's got it all. He's had every job he's ever wanted. You know, he's gotten everything he's ever wanted. But it's not, you're a human being. You go through stuff, you know?
What's up, guys? I'm so sorry to interrupt the episode. I just need 1 minute to share with you all the new and exciting, amazing stuff we've got created here at Men on Purpose. First of all, thank you for listening to the podcast and supporting the movement we're creating for all the men of the world. Next, you've got to check out our new website, menonpurpose.net, where you'll find all kinds of cool stuff, including links to our podcast and the free Men on Purpose community. You're also going to find our new free purpose-driven formula mini course and ebook, and links to all of our new coaching programs and products. Look, I've had so many of you ask me where to get started with your personal growth journey or where you can go to level up. So I put this thing together, this free ebook and mini course, and we're going to be talking about and coaching you through a really light version of our purpose-driven formula, which is our foundational formula. And for those of you who are ready now, we got you. Listen up, whether it's becoming the best husband, being the best dad, quitting that job that doesn't serve you, or just understanding how to put you first, we've got what you need to align with your authentic self and find that true fulfillment and live a life with no regrets. Look, we're helping men with structure, support, and sustainability. That's what you've asked for, and that's what we deliver. As we lead you through proven and tested curriculum that focuses on formulas to help you get farther faster. So make sure you go to menonpurpose.net, click the button to download our free, powerful, purpose-driven formula mini course and ebook. And while you're there, make sure you check out some of our amazing products designed to help you find your purpose, stop self-sabotage, and dial in your mindset, skills, and habits to evolve into the best version of you. Why? Because we want you to live and have the best life possible. No regrets. So, mentalpurpose.net, let's get back to the episode. Well, yeah, that's why we have this show, man. And that's why, like,
that's great.
When Mark said to me, I have a lot of interesting friends, and I said, can you introduce me to some of them? And not like I'm like a fanboy, like just because I want them on the podcast to tell a cool story. And Mark's like, well, who do you think you're looking for? And I said, somebody who's got a cool story, who's a human, who's been through some shit, and it's willing to talk about it, right? So that's why I wanted to acknowledge you, because that's not easy to talk about. Did your dad have trouble with any substance or anything because he was hiding that?
No.
Interesting.
He did not. He, well, now
he gets stoned
he gets stoned all the time. I think they were hippies, like in the 60s and 70s. They met in art school, and my dad looked like David Bowie, and my mom looked like Cyndi Lauper. And, it was always like I had these bigger than life rock star parents. And so, my dad wasn't a big drinker. He didn't like drinking. I would say his drug of choice probably was just weed and sort of getting stoned. But sure. I don't remember my dad. If my dad's drug of choice was work and like in keeping busy, there were very like any moment where there were very few still moments.
Okay.
With my parents, it was in a lot of if in between. Fixing the house or painting the house or, fixing up the backyard. He always had these, tasks he was doing. If there was any time in between, it was filled with either talking about other people and like making fun of them and being silly and stuff. And like, just, and now it's like perfect because I work at Family Guy and it's like, all right, we need a joke for, Amber Heard or whatever. It's like, okay, perfect. I got like 10 immediately, thanks to what my parents get. And it's like, so there was that, which was fun as a kid, but then there was a lot of anxiety. Like it was,
what was that from?
So intense. That was
the
from
unknown, the unpredictability.
That was from the unknown. That was from, I think, that was from, like I said, the dynamic, not the secret, not getting out, that kind of.
Did you know the secret back then?
I suspected, but I became very good at a young age of denying my feelings and sort of putting my feelings second to the overall to I would say to my to the overall dynamic in the family. So that's, I'm a people pleaser. It's like, I've worked hard on that in therapy. But yeah, my mode for so much of my life has been people pleasing and saying yes when I don't want to, and accommodating people and being like, well, I don't want to let them down. I'll sacrifice my feelings for the feelings of someone else. It's more important that someone else be happy than me be happy. And I don't want to let someone else down. And so that's, so that all comes from that. Yeah.
I've been through that as well. And I don't have any like anger or resentment or anything toward myself or toward other people because I made those choices to put someone else's needs before mine. And I go, obviously being a personal development coach and having an expertise in that and understanding psychology and trauma and stuff like that with our the way that we build our coaching practice and help people move through that very psychological, very trauma based.
Yeah.
And I think about that and I go, what damage did I do to myself? And what did I take from myself by not thinking I was good enough or that I was worthy enough
Mm,
or that I actually mattered enough? Because one thing
yeah.
that came from my own coaching, my own, therapy sessions was that I was running this theme inside of my mind, in my body, that said, I don't matter. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
saying it in terms of this anger that came outward of, fuck it, it doesn't matter. That was my thing. Fuck, it doesn't matter. I'll fix it. I'll figure it out. I don't
Mm,
need you, right? That
mm-hmm.
came after the people pleasing. No,
Right.
fuck it. I'll figure it out. I don't need you. I don't need this
Right.
girlfriend. I don't need this.
Yeah.
I don't need this wife. I don't need this.
Yeah.
I don't need any of you. I don't need any of you employees. I'll figure it out. If you don't
Yeah.
do it like me, fuck it. I'll figure it out. And then
Right.
what started to open up was what that really meant was, when I said like, F it, it doesn't matter. I'll figure it out. What I was really saying was, F it, I don't matter.
Mm,
And because I think I don't matter, I won't count on you, because if I count on you and you don't deliver, you're just confirming that I don't matter. So I
yeah.
have to come and do this myself. And
Oh,
if I don't do this myself, then I'm at the mercy of you potentially
yeah.
crushing me. And
Yeah.
I'm really fragile, even though I look like I'm not. Like, I'm really fragile. And that
Right.
was my trajectory through therapy and through coaching, was
Oh,
to
that's
figure that
interesting.
out about myself. Did you ever have
That's
anything like that?
interesting.
Like that, I don't care about myself, I don't matter, those kind of
Yeah.
things?
Yeah. I mean, I think for a long time I hated myself, and um, yeah, I mean, it's even hard to say, it's such a,
Sure.
I'm at a point now where I think over the, I turned 40, I just turned 42 yesterday, actually. But when I turned 40, something happened, and I just sort of, I woke up and I'm like, wow, I'm 40 now. And I remember waking up and being like, for some reason, I was like, I thought, when I was in my 20s or 30s, I'm like, well, I just have to be older to figure it all out and be confident.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then I turned 40, and I'm like, it'll be, so for some reason in my head, 40 was the age where I'm like, it's
Yeah.
all going to snap into play. When I didn't need to be 40. And then I turned 40 and I'm like, I still feel like this. What is this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I said, fuck this. I go, what am I waiting for now? 50, 60, 70? When am I going to be able to just be a more authentic version of myself? And when am I going to have confidence in myself? I've gotten myself to this point in my life. When am I going to be proud of myself? When am I going to allow myself to be, proud of myself? And it's not about suddenly being egotistical. It's not about suddenly being a dick. It's about having a healthy self-esteem. And I grew up in Massachusetts, where if you thought, my God, if you got your car washed, like, it was like, whoa, who do you think you are? Fancy guy with like a washed
Right.
car, you know? Um, it's so like I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, what, like, I'm just going to go through my whole life, like, not liking myself and doing what other
Yeah.
people ask me to do and realizing that, like, the reason that I don't like myself, big part of that is because I, I just do whatever people say, or I accommodate other people. I don't put myself first.
Yeah.
And that to me was it's still difficult to do, because there is a part of me, my default mode is to, I don't want to look like an asshole. I don't want to be egotistical. I don't want to be seen as as arrogant or anything like that, self-centered. Um, but a friend of mine, he gave me a good piece of advice, which is, I was telling him, I forget what situation we were in, and he's like, he was telling me to, to do something, and I'm like, I don't want to, just don't want to be, I don't want to be like dickish. I don't want people to think I'm an asshole. And he goes,
Yeah.
dude, you're not an asshole. He goes, even if you had, no one will think of you as an asshole because you're not an asshole. And I go, oh, wow, that actually makes sense. And so I've used that with a few
Right.
like friends who've been having trouble with this sort of thing. I'm like, you don't give off that vibe. So it's not, once you start, having self-worth and self-esteem, it's not going to come across as as you being an asshole. It's going to come across as
Authentic.
cool. Like, I want to be
Yeah.
around this person.
Yeah.
I used to find it very difficult to even like, I would always think I was bad one-on-one with people. I said, I would avoid one-on-one hangouts. I like to chime in. Yeah. With the group and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
throw a joke in or
Yeah.
throw a story. I'm an introvert, by nature, but I'm also very extroverted, like in a group, and I feel comfortable because I don't feel the pressure of keeping the ball in the air of the conversation. And so I realized also through therapy that a lot of that was, I spent my entire life not talking about my feelings. And then I got into therapy and it's all I wanted to talk about with my friends. And suddenly
Yeah.
got my relationships with my friends got so deep and changed and in really profound, cool ways. And now I feel more connected and more, I feel it's weird. I thought there was a time where I was like, God, is there like something disconnected in my brain because I don't feel anything. And then I got into therapy and it was like, oh, I've just been, in denial of of my feelings, for so long that, so anyway, so that's, I'm realize I'm doing a little ADHD speaking right now because I'm going all over the place, but I'm trying to sort of paint a picture of like 5 years of what I've
No,
learned
you did.
through 5 years of therapy in, an hour-long podcast or whatever this is. So if it's a little messy, I apologize, but it's all true. So
Dude, it's fantastic and it's well received. The only person that has to control their ADD on this program is me. You get to
oh,
ADD
nice.
out.
Okay.
You get to
Awesome.
ADD
Cool.
out. I'm the one who has to practice like not coming in real fast because I'm really
Oh,
curious.
right. But I see you writing stuff down, so that's good. So we can go back to it.
I'm always writing
So
stuff, and I practice how to listen and be active listening and write stuff down. So there's
great.
something I want to go back to real quick that,
Yes, sir.
dude, again, I love that those revelations. Like when you said, like, when am I going to be the most authentic version of me? Is it now? If it's not now, like when the hell's it going to be? Is it another 10 years? Is it another 10 years? Like I'm going to make that the intro clip. And I want people to hear that because there's so many people who come into my world, my coaching world, and they say like, can you help me get financially free? And I'll say, for what? And they go, well, then I can live my life. And they go, can't you live your life now? How much money do you need to live your life? How much money do you need to like say that I'm worth it, right? Or that I'm valuable or that I matter? And that's the base level foundation of all this stuff is if you don't do that, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Like I was on a stage somewhere and I said, look, financially free doesn't mean shit. Legacy doesn't mean anything if you're a dick and you got a ton of money. Like financially free just means you have more time to suffer inside. It really is. If you don't do the work now. And I love that one of the pieces of your message is you got to know that you're worth it and go do the work because your life matters. I mean, you don't know how much time you have and why spend any more and more time?
In fact, I think that freedom doesn't, I think it's incorrect to think that freedom and money are so, that there's a direct link between the two. Obviously it's better to have money, right? Like it makes life easier for sure. But I have a friend he's got like 15, $20 million and he's one of the most, he's never been in therapy. He's one of my angriest friends. He's one of my most scared friends. He's awkward, and like around like very insecure. And so money isn't the foundation of freedom, I think is getting into therapy and really digging and being like, it has to start inside of you because money is not going to suddenly make you confident. Money is it might for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but you're going to go back to your baseline.
It's not sustainable.
No. And so it's about working on your baseline and being like, you know what? I don't like my baseline. What is it that is making me feel this way? And then it's like excavating all of the shit that you went through as a kid. And then I think, honestly, once you've done that work, I think then if you get money, you go, oh, like now it's like, oh, I can enjoy my life. I can enjoy this. Like that's freedom.
Yeah, agreed. Why do you think that most people aren't that curious about themselves and are more scared to actually tap in to those darker corners of the inside that are scary
Scary.
to them.
It's
Yeah.
the scariest thing you can do. I mean, I think it's, it's what it's the reason that people now politically are so afraid to, if you're left, God forbid you say, you know what, I actually think Ron DeSantis has a pretty good, I like that he does this, like
Right.
he proposed. Oh my God, it's like, well, and then it's like if someone on the right goes, you know what, I actually think Bernie Sanders actually makes a lot of sense with universal healthcare. It's like, oh my God, it's like, what do you want to ban guns? And it's like it's just everyone's so fixed in what they believe because
Yeah.
it's comforting, right? And
Yeah.
so it's scary to, number one, it's this fucked up thing in our heads where it's like, if you admit that you're wrong, it was just so stupid because we're all human. And that's literally the experience of being human,
Of
is
course.
being
Of
wrong,
course.
learning
Yeah.
from being wrong, and then becoming a
Yep.
better person. Right. But if you refuse to learn and you refuse to be wrong, you can never evolve as a human being. And so it's like, well, what are we doing here? I mean, it's just people. So anyway, I think it's just, it's not, there's a lot of courageous things that people do, obviously, and there's a lot of like bravery in the world, and but I think no one really, the message should be more out there that like going into therapy with a good therapist who you really connect with, that's super key, because there's a lot of bad therapists out there, but someone that, and someone who makes you uncomfortable, makes you deal with your issues, and can pick you apart, and you learn from that. I think that to me is like, that's courage, that's bravery. I mean, for especially for guys like us growing up in the 80s. I mean, it was like Hulk Hogan, Rambo,
Right.
Stallone,
It's
like
man shit.
Schwarzenegger, shoot things, kill things.
Yeah.
Men, never
Yeah.
cry. Men never. When would a man cry in a movie? Never. And it's like,
Uh, yeah, I don't remember any in the 80s.
like in an action movie, it's like they're all
No.
kicking ass, and like,
No.
and the hot chicks, and it's like, and so we have this like idea, and so it's like, so to be like, you know what? Everything I was sold as a guy has been sort of, I mean, look, I love those movies, and I think that
Of course.
there is a very guy thing about being that way, right? Like
Yeah.
guy. But I think to deny that like guys don't have feelings and guys don't like is insane. It's like and I think it's extremely unhealthy now. I think we right now, especially, we should all be talking about how we feel, and I'm not talking about like political issues. It's like, well, why are you so afraid about this? And you start to realize that, like, you know, you talk to people, and you open up, and I've noticed it, and people are dying to open up, and people are
They are
dying
dying to open up.
for
Yep.
because everything now is TikTok. I don't want to sound like I'm, old man yelling at a cloud right now, but I've listened to a lot of podcasts with experts about, the internet, and so much of what we put out there is a version of us that is not real. And
Yeah.
such a large percentage of our lives now is spent on social media websites that are it's a curated version of yourself,
Right.
and you're unconsciously acting a way that has a reward system.
Yeah.
And so, and even if whether you know it or not, and so there's something inauthentic about pretty much everything you see on Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. So so we're sort of swimming in this sea of inauthentic. I'm not sure if that's a word, but
It is.
inauthenticity. It is, okay.
Yeah.
And so
But it is here.
that's
I don't know if it is. It is here.
it is here. So
Yeah.
that's the currency now, right? In standard American culture is Instagram, TikTok, show your best restaurants, and you look, everyone's filtered and everything, and it's like, Jesus Christ, can we just see a person who looks like a person, like with a blemish? It's okay, like I right now I'm looking at myself, I'm like, okay, it looks like I have bags under my eyes or something. Like, you know what? I'm a human being. I don't give a shit. Whatever. It's like, but I think it's like, so anyway, so I'm saying we are being pumped with so much of this, and now I've connected it to, I've had some discussions with some friends. I've had some friends get really into jazz music lately, and I think I'm connecting it somewhere to so much of today's music is so perfect, and you can program a drum, record a drummer who can't play drums, and you can quantize it and make it absolutely perfect, and you can make the vocals perfect, and there's no ugly, there's no messy, there's no pimples, so you have this entire culture. And I know I'm going on a rant here, but
keep going.
I think you have this whole entire culture that is just dying for authenticity, and for someone 100%. To come out and to at a party and be like, for someone to be, oh, you know what, I don't know, I had self-worth issues, or I got into therapy, or so when you hear about that, suddenly it's like, because of what you're so used to being exposed to, that becomes extremely interesting, and that becomes extremely real, and we're still all this technology is new, but we still have our primate brains. Like, we're still like, human evolution doesn't match the pace of technological evolution. So we're using these things, which are, I've gotten a lot of great things off the internet, got Family Guy off the internet. Sure. But I think it's like realizing that to go around and like not talk about things as a guy with other guys, especially with your guy friends, it's sad. And it's also, you're not making the most of your relationship with these people you love. I mean, like, it's weird. Like, imagine telling like guy friend, like, hey, he's nice, I love, man, dude, I just want to let you know I love you, man. And I've said that like to my buddies, it's like, because, especially as you get older, you lose people, you lose things, and you realize this is all fucking temporary. And at any moment, like, 9/11 happened on what do they always talk about the sky? Like, oh, it's not a cloud in the sky. It was perfect blue. And well, guess what? There's a lot of those moments. You never know. You never know when shit's going to hit the fan, and you never know when you see somebody again. And it's like, get that shit out, get it out. It is so helpful. And not only does it feel good to say, but it feels so good to see someone like accept it and feel what you're saying. Like, so anyway, so that was a big long rant, obviously, but I think I spent so much of my life not having conversations with friends, and I remember the first visit home, I introduced my then girlfriend to my parents, and we hung out. We went out, we joked around, had a good time, had dinner and stuff, and then we stayed at the house that one night, and then I said, well, what'd you think? What do you think of my parents? And and she goes, they're great, they're super funny and they're super fun to be around. You guys are great, but like, you guys don't talk about anything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There wasn't a moment of silence. It was nonstop talking. And she goes, yeah, but it's like, you don't talk about, you talk, but you're not talking about like depth. And that to me was like, oh, interesting. And then through therapy, I remember she said that, and I connected that to myself, and I'm like, well, I must do that with everybody. I must not connect. I feel like I'm like 40% connecting with these people that I, are my best friends. And I'm like, how can I, really extend that? And it's like, hey, you know what? Be honest, talk about how you feel. And by the way, being honest is not about being like, oh, I'm so fucked up. And like, it can be like, I'm happy and things are great, but that can't be it can't be Instagram 24/7, like
or a
shit
facade.
happens.
Like, when I remember my parents were fighting like really badly in the car on the way to a party. I might've been like 10. And I remember my mom saying, hey, smiles on, like, this is our business, right? It's our business.
Yeah.
And I understood, even at like 10 years old, I understood what she was talking about. Like, this is our business. Yet what she was saying is, it was like, don't snap this picture, snap the one 6 seconds from now when we get out of the car and we're like, hey,
yes,
snap that picture,
totally. Oh, that's
Nobody
funny.
would go, "Oh, you guys were battling it out in the car?" No, of course not. Like, look at us. We're so happy. Look at our polos.
Oh,
We're so happy. We look like a fucking Ralph Lauren ad. This is great, right? I remember
yeah,
that. And it's interesting because I feel very fortunate that my wife and I, one of the great skills we have, among all the challenges that we have too, is
yeah.
that we can communicate very deeply and very openly with each other.
God,
And I
that's the
think that's
best.
a massive benefit, because there's nothing that's not said and we have friends and other people in our lives that the only thing they talk about with their spouses is
Yeah,
surface level shit that happens
yeah,
like outside of the house, or it's
yeah,
having to do with the kids going to school, or it's what
yeah.
happened today at the office. And I'm like, hey guys, do you realize there's like a 400-foot mine below you that you got to travel down, like
Dude,
into your
yes,
psyche? And like, you
yes,
guys haven't talked for 20 years, you've been together
yeah,
now. And
yeah,
how about the challenges that you cry yourself to sleep at night and you're
yeah.
sneaking little pony bottles from the convenience store? Like,
Ugh,
why can, can you not count on your spouse to support you? And that's another challenge,
yeah,
is the person doesn't feel like they can speak it because they don't feel like that other person, whether it's a friend or a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever,
mhm,
is going to actually support them or create the space for them to feel safe enough. And that's what you and I
yeah,
are talking about, is
yeah.
we didn't feel safe as
No,
kids to express our
no.
feelings.
I mean, think about it. Like
I don't
growing
think
up,
my
you
parents
know.
knew how to do that.
No, 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 no. It's a
Yeah, I
generational
don't
thing
think they knew how.
too. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
my dad came out when he was 63. I mean, it's like,
that's
and
crazy.
you go, how could he live his whole life? And you go, well,
Yeah,
I mean, he grew up in like the 50s, it's like,
yeah,
and then the
yeah,
60s. He was like, like becoming a teenager in like like around 1970. I mean, if you think about like
that
the
wasn't
80s
allowed.
and the 90s, the worst thing to be called was like in schools, like, oh, dude, don't be gay. Like, you're gay. It's
Yeah,
like gay was
yeah,
such an insult, And so,
right.
and that was the 80s and 90s. So it's like, yeah, yeah.
Well,
You-
that back
It's
then it was like, dude, have you ever read Molly Shannon's book? From SNL.
no, I love her. Yeah, no, I haven't read that.
Her book. She was on Howard Stern a couple weeks ago. Her book is all about this major tragedy that happened. Uh, Her dad was out drinking, and the family got in the car, and a car crash happened, and then like
Oh,
half the
geez.
family died. And
Whoa.
and her somebody said later on in life, because her dad was still boozing, still trying to hide and like compress this secret. And somebody
Yeah.
said, your dad's closeted. He's been closeted your whole life. Like, he
Oh,
needs to
wow.
come out. And I didn't hear any more of the interview. And it reminded me, I've never heard anybody say like what you're saying. My father came
Yeah.
out at 60 years old.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. It's crazy, right? But think
It's
about
crazy.
what gay meant back then. It's not West Hollywood in 2022. It's
Well, now it's like you come out and it's like, holy,
celebration.
yeah. Well, it's a
Yeah,
celebration, and now I feel like it's almost like 10 years ago, 15 years ago was a celebration. Now it's just like, okay, he's gay. It's like,
yeah, sure.
okay,
Right,
of course,
right.
people are gay,
But like,
people are straight, people are
what?
gay. It's like, or people are bisexual,
Sure.
people, there's whatever.
But people thought that it brought shame to your family back then. Like, for people to
Totally.
have to, and that's our fucked up society, right? We're not going too
Yeah.
political. But that's our fucked up society, is that like that would have brought shame to your family back then, and you had to
Yeah.
keep who you were, right? Authenticity a
Yeah.
secret, and use other modes, whether it be alcohol or work. By the way, that's a substance,
Yeah.
to hide your true authentic self. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Yes.
crazy. I
Crazy.
want to tap into something real quick before I forget about it. The
Sure, sure,
you had
sure.
you had said something about, like being on camera and being in front of a room of screaming people, like you still felt alone. Do
Yeah.
you ever walk down the streets in New York City and be, elbow to elbow with people and feel like you couldn't be more alone around thousands of people?
Totally. Totally. And then
Yeah,
I'm like, who are these
yeah,
people? Like, where do these people,
right,
like, why are you walking
right.
like that? Move, let's go. It's like, I go right into like critical mode. I'm like,
Yeah,
why are you checking your phone right now? What are you doing? Like, it's
right.
totally, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
But
that was a
that's
wild time. I mean,
the case. The
yeah,
case for that would be, and it's what I teach my kids, like when they see homeless people, especially here in LA, those people they don't think that anybody sees them anymore. They think that
Right.
people just step over them and bypass them. They don't feel seen as a human. So
Right.
the easiest thing that we can do to be of service is just smile at somebody and go, "Hey man,
Yeah.
I got you. I see you." Right?
Yeah. I'm
Super
telling
easy.
you, that's super easy. I mean, there are days where I feel lonely and I'll just go on a hike and I'll say hi to somebody on a hike. And even
Yeah.
just like, I'll go out and it's not me. I usually don't like to, I feel like I'm bothering people, but I found that like, I'm going to try it and see. And just a small little, in-person sort of like connect, it feels good. It's like, it's
Yeah.
weird, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that's okay. That's what we're meant to do. We're supposed to,
Sure.
and obviously through COVID and everything, through lockdown, it's messed us. It took away that, and it's not healthy.
Sure.
It's really bad. We're meant to, again, it's the thing of like, we have an advance with technology. It's like we're supposed to be together and work in groups, and so that's crucial. I found that's something I've learned through the COVID thing, is that I like my alone time, but I also realize, oh, I really need to be around people, and I need to like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So, dude, I want to, with the time that we have left, which by the
sure,
way, that was the needed stuff. That was the really needed stuff. I
great,
still want to talk about MTV and Family
sure,
Guy, which people are going to
yeah,
write
of
to me and
course.
go, "How the fuck do you have Damien on and you don't talk about?" Okay,
Oh yeah,
so
totally.
so you like we started talking about it earlier. How do you get into MTV? Oh, you know what? Here's what I want to ask you. All of that stuff that you're dealing with as a kid, the special education, that kind of stuff. Did you channel all that maybe fear, rage, or energy into the radio piece? Is that what you
Oh
did? Like
yeah.
it's that
Oh
that's a
yeah. Oh
okay.
dude, absolutely. I mean, I wonder for it seemed to me, I said bolt of lightning as if it was some random event. My therapist goes, You were in this, it was only you, so all the attention was you. You felt smothered
Yeah.
constantly. Your parents they were in your business constantly. And you grew up with, all you wanted to do was like to just get a break, from like the sort
Escape,
of
yeah.
the tempo of the house. And so he goes, think
Sure.
about it. You locked yourself in a room by yourself. You
Yeah.
controlled what communications went out and what communications came in. And he goes,
Mm,
and that's what you dedicated your life to, having control over, having control and
yeah.
expressing yourself. It was, he goes, because I didn't feel like I could truly express myself, and so it was a medium by which I could do that, and so
Right.
that was absolutely 100%. But it was, yeah, it was not dealing with like, it was the fact that we didn't talk, and I
Right.
was in my, and then my dealing with being in denial about, my dad, and just being like, well, I can't deal mentally handle that, so I funnel it all into work, all
That's
into
it's
radio, and then
it's
all into
common.
MTV.
It's super common. So
Yeah,
how do you
yeah,
get an MTV if you're really not this the major confident guy that you would like? We would assume that somebody who gets a job on MTV
yeah,
at that point, when MTV was what it was back then, people listening who are
yeah,
in their 20s today are like, MTV? What? Oh, like
yeah,
Jackass and
yeah,
Jersey Shore? No, like MTV when you rushed home to catch
yeah,
TRL to figure out
yeah,
the newest shit out there. Like that
yeah.
was it. And
That was it.
how did you have the confidence to do that? Or was it just purely on the skill, or were you just fighting it back?
Dude, I don't, I mean, it's crazy to me. I literally just had this conversation with my therapist 2 nights ago, but it was, I would, I would wake up when I got the job. I would wake up every morning for 6 months, and
How did you get that job, by the way?
I was doing radio part-time in Boston, and the promotions director at the radio station was friends with someone who knew the casting director at MTV, and they'd been all around the country, MTV, looking for a new VJ. I had heard they wanted a rock VJ. They were looking for a rock VJ. And so
Yeah.
she said, you should try out. They're going to come to the station. A bunch of DJs are going to try out. And I think you have the look. You got like, you got the hair, you got the look. I think you'd be really good for it. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. I just want to be on the radio. Don't want to do that.
Because you wanted to
And so,
hide in the radio
yeah,
station. Yeah.
yes, right. And I just loved radio, you know. And so
Yeah.
when I was fresh off the heels, I had tried one television audition. It went horribly. It was awful. It was very embarrassing. And I said, I'm not putting myself through that again. And she goes, no, come on. And I, nope, no. And so I finally gave in, right? People pleaser. That's one of the positives, you know, because there are positives of being a people pleaser. And so that was one of them. And so I said, all right, fine. And so I begrudgingly auditioned, and because all the other DJs were like cared about being on MTV.
Right.
And I didn't, you know, I was like, oh, I don't care. I just want to do radio. I went in, not nervous, loose, had fun, was real. Again, so going back to this like authenticity thing, real. And I guarantee, I don't know, maybe I was the only person that they saw out of, you know, the hundreds of people that they saw. I wonder if I was the only one who went in going, I don't want this. I don't, please, I don't care about this. Like, I was pissed I had to write a couple video intros before, you know, the morning of. I'm like, oh God, oh right, I have to do that thing. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. I like, whatever. And then the second I went downstairs and they said action, I got my first laugh off of the thing, thing I read, and I was like hooked. I was like,
nice.
It was another lightning bolt. I need this job. And so then it was just a matter of like, you know, call back in a month, come to New York, another call back in like 2 months after that. And then I got the job, and it was sort of like, you're on for the summer for the beach house, and it's a trial period. And then I passed the trial period and I got the full-time job, and they said, okay, you're going to be replacing Carson on TRL.
Which is, dude, that's actually very iconic for anybody that doesn't know that period of time. Carson Daly and TRL it was iconic.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to even say what it's like now, because
it
doesn't exist anymore.
Like the way you felt, the way that you got the social proof that a song was good was from MTV and from all the screaming teenagers who were standing behind you. How the hell you heard anything to talk to the camera, I don't know. But like that was how you knew, like, oh, that song's number one. Psst, I got to go buy the CD. And
totally.
Maybe by that time I could get it on Napster. I could get on Napster.
Oh yeah. Legally downloaded on Napster. Yeah. No, it was huge. I mean, it was massive. I had interviewed one person my entire life before that. They asked me if I had interviewed a lot of people, you know, experience interviewing. I said, oh, of course. Yeah, I've interviewed tons of people.
Of course.
I interviewed one person, you know, at a radio station event. So I lied. And then, but they liked me, you know, and they liked my energy, and I ended up getting the job, and it was crazy. It was awesome. And I don't mean to be like, oh, woe is me, I got this awesome job. And it was so, but I'm just being honest. It was like, I would never go back and change. It was one of the greatest periods of my entire life, and I'll always look fondly back on it. But it's not to ignore, you know, me waking up every morning racked with crazy anxiety, like, you know, throwing up for like 6 months every single morning before work.
Wow.
You know, just like not eating a lot, not being able to eat. It was like complete fight or flight mode for like 6 months straight, because I was so nervous. And my success was determined on the external approval of other people. I had no really control over like the way I was viewed. You know, it's like teenagers are so fickle. They can like you one day and hate you the next, and then you're gone.
Yeah.
And so it was crazy. I was 22 years old, and now I meet, you know, like people who are 22, and I'm like, oh, I would never give. Yeah. I'm shocked they gave this person a license. Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, can this person even like, oh my God, I want to help a 22-year-old, you know? It's not like give them the keys to like the biggest show on television. It's just kind of wild to think of that. But yeah, there was a lot of, and then of course, if you have no self-worth, and like, you know, it's not that it's, but yeah, but then my friends would watch me like, oh, you're so confident, and you know, you're like so cool and confident. I'm like, really? Because that's not what's happening in my head. I'm like,
no.
Yeah.
But dude, it's you had celebrity status overnight though.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, I did.
And
Yeah.
especially the MTV Beach House, I'm sure that was fun, and
Yeah.
then
Oh,
getting
so
going
fun.
up to New York.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
it was
it's
so
it's
fun. It was everything you think it, I'm not gonna, I could tell stories and stuff, but it's like, it's everything you think it is. It was like
no, yeah.
being in a rock band, it was like, it was crazy, partying with celebrities and, you know, it was just nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could go into, like, I could ask you so many
It's a whole
questions just for my
separate
own
podcast. I
curiosity,
know. I know.
but, it's not the subject of the podcast, so
Well, you know what, too? And I stopped doing podcasts for a while because I ended up getting the same. I'm like, I'm doing the same podcast over and over. Just go listen to this.
yeah,
Because the questions are always, who's the coolest person you met? What's the coolest thing you've done? But I've never talked about, how did you feel through this process,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
this is yeah.
Look, I think Ian is curious about just the fascination of getting that kind of job, and, like, what did it come with? So, like, you and me over beers, yeah, I would
Yeah,
ask you,
right.
like, so what was that like to, like, party
Totally.
with chicks like that? Our
Yeah.
audience, and the reason why I started this show is because they need to know what you were feeling. They need to know what you were going through,
Yeah.
because
It's more
anybody
interesting.
that knows Damien from 2002 is like,
Yeah.
that dude is confident as fuck. I want to be him.
Oh my God.
Inside, you're like,
No.
how do people do this? My
I mean, I
skin's
had moments,
growing.
totally, and that was the majority of my experience. I mean, did I have moments where I was like confident and like, yeah, of
Of
course, yeah,
course.
of course.
Of
Like,
course.
you get, it's very, I mean, to put any 20 something year old
Yeah.
in the biggest show on television, you
Yeah.
have the key to New York City. You could, any nightclub, you could drink for free and party and you're hanging out with like celebrities. And it's like, it's almost unhealthy to put someone young now, you hear about like,
Great.
people, child stars and Michael Jackson and all that, and it's like, oh my god, and I wasn't even close to like
Right.
these people who were famous when they were a child,
Right.
and it's such a weird, it's not we're not meant to do that. We're not meant to walk around and everyone be like, hey, well, hey, I know you, fuck you, yeah, you're great, no, I hate that guy, I love that guy, so you're like, you walk out and I was like paranoid. I'm like, I'm gonna walk. What am I gonna feel like today? If
Yeah.
someone sees me and it's like, fuck you, you suck. It's like, yeah. So, especially when you're
That's the
someone
part
who's,
that I'm fascinated by, the human experience, and that's the part I would, if we had more time, I'd dig into that a lot more. Maybe we'll do another one that just digs into,
sure,
like you know what? Because yeah, I think we should do another one, because I'm curious about, like, there's some celebrities that live in my neighborhood, and I think about it and I go, hey, do they have extra, like, mind share burden that I don't have? Thinking, like, is the plumber gonna come here and, like, install a mini camera in
right.
my vents to, like,
Oh, dude,
to
totally
blackmail
paranoid.
me? Like, I would be
Yes.
so fucking paranoid. Or like, if I were a sports star, can I go to the grocery store, or is a guy who runs, like, a bookie service, like numbers running and sports betting behind the deli that he, owns?
Yeah.
Does he want to break my legs because he lost 3 bets on me last week? I'd be so
Yeah.
paranoid. And that's the part that
Yes.
you're alluding to. And I would open that up. But for the lack of time,
Sure.
I wanna just, so MTV goes. So you weren't on MTV for decades. You were on MTV for what, 7? How long were you on
Eight,
MTV?
8 years.
8
8 years.
years.
Yeah.
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 And then
Yeah.
what happens after that?
MTV TRL ended. I moved out here with my then girlfriend to LA. I got a hosting gig on this big reality show on NBC. It ran. I thought it was gonna, have the Jeff Probst, Ryan Seacrest sort of
Right,
career, and
right.
it would go 20 seasons, and I'd be set for life. And it went one season, and didn't come back. And I sort of sat around for a year and a half, not doing anything. And I remember during that year and a half, Twitter, all my comedian friends were on Twitter and they were tweeting jokes. And that was always a bone. I always had like an itch that I wanted to scratch when I was on TRL, which was like, I'm more than just reading cue cards, and this is number 5. This is number, I'm like, I want to do comedy. I want to like, and so I said, you know what? What else am I doing? Nothing. While I wait for the next job, I'm going to tweet one joke every single day on Twitter, and I'm just going to make it a practice. And so I did it, and time went by. I got better at it, and more people followed me. I got retweeted by some of my comedian friends, and then Seth saw some of these retweets and liked one of my tweets and followed me and retweeted me, and then that kind of snowballed. Invited to like his birthday party, invited to the TED 2 premiere, and
Nice.
And I was like, this is awesome. This is so great. I went to his Christmas party, which is legendary out here, and I'm going, this is so cool. I get to, Twitter's awesome. All the while, I had started working full time in radio, back in radio again, and I was like, this is great, And so then one day out of the blue, my manager calls me and he says, I just got off the phone with the showrunners of Family Guy, and Seth wants you to write for Family Guy for the next season of Family Guy. And it was like, what?
Wow.
And I was, oh my God, this is awesome. And after the 10 seconds of celebrating, being like, yeah, I am funny. All right, man. It's like, oh shit, I have to make a decision here. Do I leave the comforts of radio to go and do something that I really want to do, but I'm so scared to do it? And obviously I made the decision to do it, and I've been there for 9 years in November. But
wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that happened, through Twitter. Really.
That's so cool. I love that. That's such a cool story, man.
Yeah. Wow. It's wild.
Why were you not scared? I know we got to wrap. Why were you not scared on like putting yourself out there jokes wise on Twitter? And then like why did you have the confidence to do that? But I just think about that.
I think because it didn't matter. I don't know. When I get into things, like I said, it got like that laser focus thing that takes over, and I get obsessed with something. And you ever see a stand-up who's just starting out, and he goes up and he does it, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
But he doesn't understand why it's terrible, because he thinks what he's doing is good. Because when you start something, you suck at it, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know you don't know you suck. Like if you're truly passionate about it, you don't know you suck. You go, oh, I'm just doing what I don't get it. I'm doing like what George Carlin did, or like my influences are, I'm doing like it worked for Steve Martin. I'm doing the Steve Martin thing. Well, you're not Steve Martin. You got to find your voice, right? And so discovering your voice takes time. And then it's only in retrospect do you go, oh God, those were, delete those. Those were awful. They're not even jokes. So the confidence just comes, I think, with the obsession and the passion, and you just go in blind and you go. I mean, when I started Family Guy, I go, you know what? Pulling the ripcord. This is it. I can't look back. I have to just go, and it's like, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to make a fool of myself. But if I get a few jokes in, awesome. That's all that matters.
Sure.
And that's what you kind of focus on,
That's so cool, man. I love that. Well, look, dude, I have 50,000 more questions for you that
I know. This feels like we spoke for like a half hour.
I know. It's interesting because a lot of the time, a lot of the people that come on here, we don't end up talking about what I thought we were going to talk about. And usually I have a one sheet in front of me that says like, oh, hey, they want to talk about these 3 things and they're experts in this. This was just an intro from Mark Hentemann. For audience, for those of you who don't know, go back and listen to Mark Hentemann's episode. Mark's been on Family Guy for 20 plus years, I think.
Long time.
Got a very interesting story, and introduced me to Damien. And so I didn't think this was going to go at all like that. And I really, 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 really want to thank you for opening up and being so damn authentic and honest, man. That made this episode really powerful.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's awesome it's cool to be interviewed by someone who's willing to go there with the guest, which is really awesome. And it helped me. So
sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really do.
Well, this is great. Great having you. And maybe we'll do a follow-up and dig into the show business side and how
totally
I'll talk to you off air about it, and we'll organize something. So thanks for being here, dude. Really appreciate you and your time, and audience. you look up Damien Fahey. You can't miss him online. Like, just type in his name on Google. I don't even have to give you his Instagram. Like, just type in Damien Fahey on Google.
That's how you know. That's how you know I'm huge. By the way, if you type my name into Google, something comes up.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
That doesn't happen for literally every other human being on the planet.
Right. Yeah. So, awesome. Audience, this has been great, and
so fun.
Yeah, dude. We're gonna do another one of these. So
for sure, I'm down.
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna let you go, audience. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.